Well, I guess I think we could get started with some introductions here in a second. We don't have a big group, but I don't think that's a detriment because it allows us to exchange ideas more closely. I think Kristi and I talked about the way to approach today, and the idea was just to not have a highly structured event, but maybe share the things that are going well for us as instructors at business instructors at community colleges, or share where our pain points are, where we can maybe get some help, and maybe most importantly, just exchange contact information as the conversation continues. The last Trends conference we had, I know Kristi exchanged some good marketing, online digital marketing information with some folks, and then I heard back from some people this fall who are working on integrating videos into their online classes, and so we were able to exchange some ideas. So maybe we can just start off with an introduction, and whatever you feel like you need to, however you introduce yourself, and then maybe share what's going well for you or what a pain point is, and we can go around the room and then circle back to those ideas. Kristi, you first.
Okay. Sounds good. So I'm Kristi LaFrenz. I teach marketing and professional communication for Lake Michigan College. I've been there 3 years now, full time, but I've been there a long time as a part-time faculty member. The last Trends conference was awesome for me because, as Joe mentioned, we headed up a roundtable, and I think that was in February. And from there came some great connections, and we actually developed a digital marketing class as a result of that discussion. And that was developed this summer, and it's full up this fall. So that was a really cool outcome. Things that I'm excited about are 7-week classes and free tuition. And things that are pinch point for me right now are free classes, because you can imagine what that does, and 7-week classes. So I'd say they kind of fit in both categories. Okay.
Okay,
Rick?
I'll go
ahead,
next.
Joe.
So my name is Joe Zwiller. I'm a business instructor here at Lake Michigan College as well. I've been here for, I don't know, over 10 years. After at a certain point, it doesn't matter. My most brilliant accomplishment was recruiting Kristi to come here full time. So as Kristi mentioned, we have had free tuition this year, and that brings out different students than we've had before. And we've had a lot of increased demand as a result of the pandemic for online classes. And I teach an asynchronous introduction to business class that started off with 100 students, and it's down to 80 or so at this point. And so that is a great accomplishment in one respect, that I have these asynchronous students who I make do group work, even though we are asynchronous. And for those who do well in it, it's like they bond, and I think they're more likely to take next follow-on classes. But the pain point is for those students who take an online asynchronous class and they come in with the perspective that it should never require group work, and it should be able to be done on their own time, at their own pace, their own way. And yeah, so that's my pain. Rick, you care to go next?
You're muted, Rick.
Katie, do you want to take an opportunity to go next while Rick figures out this mute thing?
Sure. Hello, everybody. I could not get, it won't recognize my camera for some reason, so I'm only voice here. So I teach in the business area at West Shore Community College. And fun fact, in 1998, I actually attended LMC. I actually started out in the nursing program and found out when we got to shots that it was not for me. So I have been teaching, much like you, Kristi. I was an adjunct for probably about 12 or 15 years before I transitioned into full-time faculty. And so I've been full-time about 5 years now. I enjoy teaching online. I enjoy teaching online synchronous. New modality we've been trying this semester is high flex, and it is not my favorite. That has been a stress point for me.
What is high flex for you?
So high flex is they can attend in class, they can choose to attend online synchronously, or they can choose to kind of work, in a typical online environment on their own. But the equipment, I feel like, has been limiting. So.
Katie, we call that FLE here, and we have some very strong proponents that everything we do should be available FLE. And I know for me personally, I don't think we can graduate somebody with a degree in business specifically, having them never had not necessarily an in-person class, but a class where they're interacting with us live and with their peers live, because our program outcomes are such that that interaction, that group work, and that teamwork is pretty important. So, is it possible for somebody to graduate and get a business degree from you guys doing it all in high flex?
No, actually, there are only 2 classes in my area that are in that high flex design. I believe it will be the last semester I offer it this way also.
Good for you for giving it a shot.
Yeah.
So looking at the people tab, I see we also have Christopher and Ron and Kimberly. Not sure if you guys can hear us and see us, but right now we're just going through introductions and sharing what's working for us well and what we might want to talk about getting some help on.
All right. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Chris.
Great. So I'm Christopher Van Oosterhout from Muskegon Community College, and thanks for hosting this.
Good to see you, Christopher.
Good to see you. I want to catch up with you and see how things are going.
I know. So I already told my story about how I met somebody last year, and that led us to a digital marketing class. Yeah. So we're also sharing what's kind of working well for you right now. What are you excited about? And what's kind of your pain point in the business program these days?
Oh, great. So can I share?
Please do.
I'll talk about my pain point, and I'm not sure if it's a business program issue. And so if we say, well, that's really not the focus, I'm really struggling with the idea of due dates as a whole. I spent a ton of time as part of our student success initiatives and meeting students where they're at, adjusting due dates. I mean, I feel like much more of a clerical person sometimes than an instructor managing those types of things. And historically, I've always said, well, the reason I have due dates and the reason I'm strict on them is because that's what happens in the real world. And I've done a little self-reflection on that because I do work in in the non-academic world. And I realize that due dates are a lot more flexible than some of us academics like to think they are in the real world outside of academia. And so specifically as it relates to training people in business, that's one of my big pain points right now, which may not seem business specific, but how much should I emphasize due dates as opposed to being flexible. You have organizations like Western Governors. They're doing commercials that clearly are talking about how we're going to meet you where you're at, and we're going to be flexible. And they really are speaking to this issue. And this whole idea you have to start classes in September and end them in December. Well, who says? Is that really a consumer customer centric view of things?
So, Chris, I've been in the Marine Corps for over 20 years, and one of the things that we've reflected upon in the Marine Corps is that the advertising promotions that we run talk about how if you let us kick your butt a little bit and you're strong enough, you can be one of us. And the Army has for a long time talked about how you can be an army of one. And I think that is how I would propose what the problem that you're suggesting with Western Governors is. Can you have an army of one education? Because I see 3 points for having strict due dates. One is the real world is like this, strict due dates. 2 is I can't manage craziness, right? So if I have like 100 students and there's 1,000 assignments due this semester, I can't spend 3 hours modifying due dates with a customized assignments. But the third one is I got to keep everybody on the same page because we're going to move through this together. And I can't keep you working in groups and teams and learning from each other if everybody's on a different page. So I hope we can circle back to this one too, because it's interesting to me. I think Rick, did you get your unmuted solution solved? All right, let's hear from you, Rick.
Sometimes the technology, the example or the mute thing is maybe it's my generation. I'm starting to feel overwhelmed by this technology. Everywhere you turn, it's different. Nothing is standardized. I couldn't find that mute button. I totally thought when I was earlier turned the sound down on the computer, took care of it. It didn't. I do find technology just running rampant as it's just getting really, really tough. And I used to think I was the technology leader at this community college. Probably in the 1990s, I was, but I'm not anymore. I can't keep up with it. And I struggle and I really work hard at it. There was a mention at the beginning of our discussion about videos, and I've really gotten good at making videos. Then just the other day, up comes, oh, by the way, something about closed caption. Well, that's a problem. No one ever told me anything about that. And it's a nightmare. I don't know. I think the simple solution is to just not put videos in. But I know students like them, and I know they have a use and they have a purpose. But the other day, it took me 2 hours to make a 5-minute video with captions. I didn't see the value in that from a work point. So I do find the technology getting beyond me. Maybe it's for the generation in the 30s and the 40s, year old range. Maybe it's not for people pushing 70. Maybe it's something I have to really consider. Maybe it's time to think other options in life. I want to keep teaching for a few more years. But the technology thing, just like that mute button, is a horror. It's not intuitive. Maybe for younger people it is, but not at my age. So I just want to simply say one more thing. I've been doing this for 27 years. I teach for Bay Mills Community College. We're one of 3 community colleges in the entire Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So we don't have anybody close by. And out our office windows, we do see Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario every day. It's a half a mile to Canada. So it's a unique part of the world that we live and work in. And I think a lot of this technology does open opportunities for many of our students in an area that we have quite limited job opportunities to find some good income. So I'll stop with that and just say I enjoyed being here. And I'm not going back to the mute. I got that figured out now. A little bit late, but got it. You need to hear about my wife's excitement about World Wrestling Federation.
So, Rick, I just want to say I really appreciate you sharing your honesty about how you feel about technology. You are not alone. And as Joe mentioned in the chat, I think students also struggle because it's coming at them from all directions. And Christopher and I actually had this conversation last year of how do you keep a class relevant? You know, like it's no longer this thing where you can just create a class and it's good for a couple years. It has to change every single semester to be relevant, and it takes a huge amount of work. So it's a great issue, and we appreciate you bringing that up. Okay, I think I saw Ron here somewhere. Ron Pearson. Or Kimberly, we know you're there. We'd love to hear your introduction as well.
So Kim, I see there in the chat, is there maybe a limited ability to get in the microphone or the camera right now? One of the things we were doing is talking about what's going well for us, or what is a pain point, and then we were going to circle back to whatever topics seem to gather the most interest from the group. Is there anything, do you have any particular pain points or great successes right now? Oh, sorry. Okay. I see. So Cengage MindTap as a success, that things are going well. We've used that too here for most of our classes, and what I like about that is with Cengage Unlimited, students they don't know how lucky they are. For $119 for a semester, they can take 5 business classes, and it all uses the same subscription. And they'll still complain about it. And of course, you know, it's probably not unusual for it to be $120 a class. Back in the day when I first started here, we had a $500 law textbook, which is a crime, but it's going pretty well for them. All right, and then I think we still had Ron.
Anyone missing Zoom right now? It's like second nature anymore. I can find people.
Well, does anybody have a topic that they want to dive into based on the pain points and successes that we've heard about in the room so far today?
So I do have a question, and it wasn't really necessarily with the pain points, except about keeping up with technology. How many of you are integrating certifications, third-party certifications, like a Google? So I am diving into it, but I'm not so sure how helpful it is. But I'm using MailChimp certifications, Google certifications, and things of that nature.
Well, Christopher, I can say that I am, but that's not really true, because Christina, who came to me through you, has incorporated certifications into our new digital marketing course. And so the students are just working on those right now. I'll be really anxious to get feedback from the students and from Christina, like, hey, is that worth it? Is it working? What are your thoughts on it?
I love them for a variety of reasons. One, there's something that the student can take with them as emblems, and they're integrated, and they're kind of a third-party certification that's integrated, so on their LinkedIn profiles and such. One of the concerns I have is there's not what I'd call a real high level of academic integrity to them. So most of the answers are pretty readily available, and they're not proctored. So that's an issue.
So we, in our digital media marketing class, we do have the students taking some of the HubSpot certificates. But again, like you mentioned, technically they're not proctored if you just allow them to take them at home. But we do have them scheduled to go up to the testing center to take the exam. So there's that. I mean, but that's tough sometimes when, especially if you have a online course. Right now you're saying it's online, but now you have to come to campus. So that's something you might have to work through. I love certifications. We do the Microsoft Office Specialist certifications in our computer applications courses. And in our advisory meetings with businesses, they tell us how much they value seeing those certifications from students.
That's really helpful, Katie. Thank you. I feel like this is where things are moving and we need to find a way to incorporate them. I also love that students can put it right on their resume, something actionable that they took from this class. So I guess I would love to dig into, Christopher, your question about due dates. Frankly, that's not something we're wrestling with. I think I'm running the other way. I have a couple classes. I'm like, hey, if you think you can do late stuff, the answer is no. I used to be much more flexible, but I've just become, I have one 5-week class in particular, and I'm like, you just don't bother taking the class if you can't keep up, because this is not a good option for you. And it's professionalism. So to be professional, you need to do what you've committed to do. I might be heading in the wrong direction. Tough love. I don't know. So I'd love to hear you speak more about this.
No, I think I'm with you. And I know I'm with you on where I'd like to be. I get a little bit of pressure from student services, and it's not direct pressure on me saying, oh, you got to give people special accommodations all the time. But we hear a lot of messaging about all the stress students are going through and all the things we need to do to meet them where they're at. So it probably is just a matter of me taking a stand and saying, okay, I agree with that, but life happens.
So with mine, I try to do some assignments. I try to keep really strict with due dates. And then there's another category that I allow them to turn in late. So quizzes and exams, the due dates are due dates, period. And so stay on top of those. If they're in the homework category where they're just answering questions or they might have an essay, I'll accept those late with a late deduction. And then I explain to them that they should really manage their time. And if you know you're going to be limited, do those assignments that are not accepted late, do those first. And then you can always come back and do the other assignments that are accepted late. I find that I've had less of that admin work, like you mentioned, Chris, about, like going back and editing the due dates. I get very few requests on the quizzes. So that's what I do.
Sounds like a good way to handle it. Rick, did you have something?
Yes, I'd like to talk about due dates for a second, because it is a frustration. Sometimes what I do, we use on the course delivery platform, I do not reset the due dates at all. If they are late and it's a legitimate reason, I just have them send me an email attachment. It's a whole lot easier than going back into the platform and changing all the dates and times and that kind of thing. There are certainly some legitimate reasons for late work. I don't like any of them, but sometimes it's hard to say no on everything. I mean, there are funerals, there are deaths, there are COVID cases. What are you going to do? Tell someone whose father had COVID and is in the hospital and the paper was due? That's too bad. I can't. Morally, I can't do it. Because we do have a lot of that right now in Chippewa County here. We've lost a few people to it in our own community college. And it's just hard to be to that. I tried to be inflexible today. So I inherited a couple of classes I teach. There are computer classes that relate to business. We had a very strict, no deadline, no late pay for anything, but it was a nightmare. So I decided sometimes you got to take it case by case by case. And our classes here are not enormous. We don't have 100 people in the class. I mean, if I'm running 10 or 15, that's a pretty good class. I can handle it. I don't like it, but there are reasons. I mean, somebody doesn't get a voucher from financial aid in time to get their book or something. Well, I guess that's ultimately not their problem if somehow the voucher didn't get there on time. And some of these things are tough. And I do take points off for late work if it's obviously late due to just not getting around to it. But if it's something like a death in the family from COVID, I'm not going to take points off anybody. I'm not going to tell them you can't turn your work in. So it's a tough call. It is. I just want to share that and let it go.
I appreciate you sharing that, Rick. And I actually totally agree with you. And for me, any student that comes to me and says, hey, I need to talk about the situation, I'm incredibly lenient.
Is anybody else's audio sketchy, or is it just mine?
I feel like mine's fine.
Can you understand me okay, Kristi?
Yeah. Yep, you sound good.
Yeah, it must just be must be the downside on mine. So on this homework piece, I kind of have this because I'm very sympathetic to the fact that the real world things happen, but I'm also don't want to live in Cengage for an hour a week adjusting due dates. It's a distraction and it's a non-value add. And so I kind of have this very, I don't know, it works for me. What I tell my students is I am never, ever resetting a due date in the homework, in the automated homework ever. However, I will give you 24 to 48 hours towards the end of the semester to make up any work that you've missed. And if you have not done anything all semester long, then get out the Monster drinks and your Marlboros and just plow through it for 48 hours if that's your thing. But if you've missed a chapter or two, fine. And I almost feel like this actually replicates kind of like a real world boss, where if you're chronically late, we are going to have a fist fight. But if you occasionally let things slide a day, who cares? Kind of the same thing with an attendance policy. For a class that meets twice a week, I let you be absent or late 3 times, and it doesn't impact your grade. But if you're absent more than that, it's going to begin to impact your grade. But I don't want to hear that this time it was because I had a stomach ache, or this time it was because I had a sprained ankle or my car broke down. At the end of the day, you have to consistently be at work. But your boss doesn't want to entertain like individual, what happened this Tuesday kind of stuff. So that's what works for me. And it's kind of, I don't know. It's weird. I'm totally sympathetic to the idea that we need to, sometimes you're going to miss due dates, but I'm also don't want to live in it on a daily basis.
Okay, what else is on your mind, folks? Christopher, I see your spreadsheet. That's fabulous. Thank you. Kimberly, do you have anything you're wrestling with or anything you want to throw in the chat? We can talk about it.
So, Chris, would you tell us what you know about that problem? Because I think when we've looked at that in the past, we didn't have enough faculty credentialed at either the number of faculty that we needed to have or the number of PhDs or something like that we needed to have wasn't sufficient enough. So can you tell us what you know? Because I don't know anything beyond that.
I don't know a lot. What I do know is that we are having some students that are talking about this idea. It's going to be easier and more of my credits will more easily transfer into my next business school, my next AAC SB business school, if you are an AACSB business school. So I don't know enough. And just the fact of what you just said, because I haven't dug into it at all, about number of PhDs, that's going to be a problem in our business. If you're talking about teaching faculty in the business department, that'd be a problem. That'd be a stopper for us. So yeah, that'd be too bad. I do know that I've heard it even more so, people wanting to be in these certified programs at the bachelor's level so they can more seamlessly get into and have the appropriate preparation at the master's level. So without additional GRED testing and things. So I would love to have the label, but I'm not sure if it's really practical for us. Just wondering if anyone else, does anyone know of any of community colleges in Michigan? I guess I could look it up on their website probably. But it sounds like the answer is no. So that's fine too.
So Christopher, Katie, Kimberly, do any of you have 7-week courses? This is something we went to about 3 years ago. We decided to test them. We'd been hearing some really good things about them, and it was difficult at first for students and for faculty. However, we're now at a point where we offer enough 7-week courses that students know what they're doing. They know what a 7-week course is. They know it's double time, but they're actually looking for them. And they're saying, this is awesome because I can get really focused on one thing at a time, and then I'm out and I move on to the next thing. And it fits their attention span. We all have attention span issues these days. So I'm just wondering, even if you're not doing it, are you thinking about it? What's the read on them?
I for sure want to pursue it. I think it is a spectacular idea. However, it breaks down without mass. If you have students taking a mix of them, the advantage of the 7-week course is lost because they don't get to reduce their actual number of courses they're taking. That's where 7-week courses really make an impact, because if you can focus on less courses during those 7 weeks, and we have to get mass before it will really work, I think. And we came really, really close around March of 2020, and then it didn't happen, because everything else fell apart. So it's back on the table to discuss, and I'm really excited about it. I think it is the right way to go.
Yeah, we love it. We don't always love it. We mostly love it. Depends on where we are in the 7-week cycle. I would say that we mostly have decided to put them with our online and remote program. So they're typically not done face-to-face, although I have done some face-to-face, and those actually work fine too. But when we rolled out the all online business program, we made this a key component of it. And we actually talked to Arts and Humanities also and said, hey, to be part of this program, we need you to offer things in 7 weeks. And the pushback was, well, my stuff is too hard to do that. And it's like, well, we can probably shoot some holes in that because it's not about it being hard. It's about focus, really.
Yeah, we consistently hear from different groups saying, oh, that's great for the rest of you. Foreign language, nope, can't do it. Computer science, nope, can't do it. We're unique. I'm like, okay. So, but the problem is, if everyone thinks they're unique, then it falls apart.
Sure does. Okay, so Katie, have you guys been thinking about it?
It has come up a couple times, but more as just trying one class here and there, as opposed to, a batch of classes. Our enrollment, we're not large, we're pretty rural. So I don't think we could do a batch and be successful. I don't know that we could do even, a small portion and have enough enrollment if we're now dividing them up between the 15-week and the 7-week. So, but I am very curious about it.
Yeah, that makes total sense because you're offering another format. Sometimes I feel like we're offering something for everyone. We have evening, 7-week and 14-week and remote and face-to-face and online and daytime and you name it. But I'd say the real success for us, and Joe, we're talking about 7-week classes, has been now that we have so many and students plan around it. So Christopher, it gets over that issue of, oh, I have so many classes at this time. No, they know, they plan for it. Oh, Joe, you're on mute.
So do you allow students to be enrolled in a 7-week class and a 15-week class? Or and when they are in a 7-week class, do you have any kind of limits? Like you can only take one 7-week class at a time, or?
No, I mean, they typically manage that on their own. I have students who are doing 2 7 weeks at a time and one, 14-week. That's a full load. But I have found that it's the evening students, especially, who just love this. They're working full time. They love that they can come in, knock it out, do it well, and get out. So they're the ones I think we're really servicing there. So that brings up a question for you all. Do you think Zoom is here to stay?
Zoom in particular, or just online meeting?
Yeah, any remote meeting, whether it's Zoom or any other way. Do you think that's here to stay? Kimberly says yes.
Definitely here to stay.
Rick says, I hope not. Yeah. So what are you thinking about that, Katie?
I think we'll definitely be using this in industry and in education going forward. It's just, boy, it sure is convenient. Now, what I would like to see is making my students turn their cameras on more, which is, I know, quite ironic since mine cannot come on right now. I'm so sorry. But I would love, I had gone back and forth in my mind. Do I make them turn them on? Do I not make them turn them on? And I haven't made them turn it on, but I do show them how they can blur their background or change their background if they don't want folks to see, their bedroom or whatever room they're in. But they do gravitate to not have their cameras on.
Christopher, what about your students?
Specifically as it relates to cameras, I try really, really hard. I entice them every way I can. And I probably get about a 80% on rate. And the reason I say I entice them is because I am not allowed institutionally to require it. We have been told specifically, and I don't think they're being hard on us, but administration says we are not going to stand behind anyone who penalizes students for not having their camera on because of environmental concerns, what does your room look like and things of that nature. I would like to press it a little harder, but it's unfortunate for me as well, because what it does is it puts me in a situation of sometimes embarrassing my students unintentionally by trying to get their attention, asking them a question, and they're not there, or, oh, could you repeat that? Which really means, I was disconnected. And I don't want to embarrass my students, but I do want to encourage them to participate. And if I see their face, I have a little better idea that they're probably active and ready for the question. So that's probably the biggest struggle for me. And I have been taking screenshots periodically so I can go back and communicate with those students that don't have their camera. Is there anything I can do to help in this situation to get your camera on? I have not felt comfortable calling out Joe and say, Joe, you don't have your camera on. Why? So that's where I'm at with it. We need their cameras on, I think, for the best experience. So some of my colleagues would go so far as to tell their students, would you wear a paper bag over your head in my classroom? So I don't do that. But.
Can you guys hear me yet? Hey, it's fixed for 5 minutes. So I make them have their cameras on. For me, we don't have an institutional policy against it yet. As a grad student, I was taking classes up until, I guess, the year before that online, and it was a requirement to have the camera on to make sure you're engaged. So a related pain point for me on these online classes that are remote is that we have capped the class size at 25, which is the same size as our face-to-face classes. And I've complained about it to no avail. I can't really run an engaged remote classroom with 25 students in it. I can talk, for an hour at students through the internet. So do you guys what are your class caps, and is it different for remote versus face-to-face?
Our caps have been the same, but as they've actually been higher online. And it's not that we've made them higher than the normal cap. We've actually reduced the physical cap for social distancing reasons. So it's actually the opposite of what I kind of think it should be. Like you, I think it should be a lower online cap.
Yeah, you're trying to get as much human interaction, but you're doing it through a soda straw, and I need fewer people in there to do it. It just hasn't gained any traction with our administration. Any of you guys have any observations on trying to make remote classes as interactive as possible and the number of students you can do that with?
I just want to first point out, Rick, I see your message that due to COVID, we are at 10 on campus. Yeah. So, yep. So your social distancing. And then how many, Rick, do you have in your remote classes, your Zoom classes? Yep, 15. Okay. Seems more manageable, definitely. And Kimberly, I just want to make a note that as soon as we hit a break in this discussion, we'll come to your question about VPA. That I didn't miss that.
So Joe, one of the things I've found pretty good success with is breakout rooms. And the concern always is what's really happening in there. And I think the results are pretty good, but I wish I could monitor multiple breakout rooms at once. But I have to go in and out, and at least I could see if there was activity and not just one person with their camera on, the other three with it off. But usually when I enter in, sometimes I hear some things that are a little surprising, a little off topic, or why exactly is he asking us this question? It's like, well, hey, I'm here. I can help you. I can tell you why. But yeah, breakout rooms is my.
That's just why you need, if you were in a physical room and you had them broken out, you have the situational awareness of body language and murmurings and activity that you just can't get, on a monitor. And it's just harder to do. There's just more friction in there. And so I would love to see a smaller class size, particularly for teaching Business 103 Introduction to Business. Man, we're going to fill our online classes and our remote classes before our face-to-face, and they fill up with 25. They're at their max capacity every time. And I want to have classes like at obscure hours, just because then there'd be fewer students signing up for that remote version. The 9:30 to 12:52 hour class or something like that. But,
You could take the infomercial slot.
yeah,
2 a.m. Yeah. So the other thing I use a ton of, so you definitely use breakout rooms, and Christopher, I love to go in and out of them. Yeah, just sneak in and out like a. I use chat a ton. I'll just ask a question. I say, hey, everyone, like answer in chat. And then I'll often say, now talk to someone else directly in chat and speak to them about what they wrote, so that you carry that discussion a little further. They kind of like getting to know each other a little better. So do a ton of interactive stuff.
I just want to address what Rick was saying about you don't know how to use breakout rooms. And what I would say, Rick, is I found the training for breakout rooms actually not extremely helpful, because you can't really experience it. So what this means is you kind of have to just be courageous, right? And maybe it's getting together with outside of a classroom with some of your colleagues, but just kind of try it in a classroom and just say, maybe we're going to lose 10 minutes of time as I explore this. And just give it a try. And I think it's a little intimidating until you do it. And then it's fairly intuitive in Zoom. And of course, that's easy to say when someone's been doing it for a while, right? I understand that, Rick. But that'd be.
And Zoom has some pretty decent short videos on breakout rooms. So that's a good place to start. Yeah, I know, Rick. They get it. I'll bet you don't look bad. No.
But I agree. It is embarrassing whenever the technology doesn't work how you expect. And so
I think the biggest technology struggle I had over the past few weeks is that I have a student who struggles to hear. And so it's really cool because on Zoom, a student can make the request of, could we do captioning for this? And it does this amazing job of captioning right as you go, and it runs it across the screen. All you have to do as an instructor is say, sure, yes. You hit yes, and suddenly the transcript starts coming up as people talk. It's actually valuable to me as well, because sometimes I'm like, what did you say? But here's what happened. 25 minutes into each class, everything crashed and burned. And I mean crashed and burned to such a point that Zoom froze completely. Names were gone. We couldn't share anything. It was just an absolute mess. The first time I chalked up to, maybe there was just a major glitch. The second time I knew it was the closed captioning. And I went online to the Zoom forum and asked, hey, what's going on? And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it was in this huge meeting and it totally froze with the closed captioning. So I'm no longer able to offer that to her, which is really a bummer, but that's got to get fixed.
I typically use, instead of Zoom, I use Microsoft Teams, which also has really great captioning, gives them options to look at it in different languages. So if it's not their first language, they can choose another. So I've had really good success with Microsoft Teams.
And Katie, that's great, because that's actually something your students will use in the business world too. All right, how about we go back and capture Kimberly's question? She asked, are you running a BPA chapter at your colleges? Well, I'll answer for us. We're not, but we used to, right, Joe, for quite some time.
Yeah, we did. That was one of those things that left, when the person who ran it left, and I'm not sure how. Um, it's one of those things where I'm not sure how engaged the students were versus how much faculty had to push it to keep it going, and so I would be hesitant about bringing it back and having to, um, feel like you were driving behind them to keep it up. I'd be interested to learn if anybody has a really active one that's, not that adds energy as opposed to consumes energy.
We tried to get one started the school year that COVID hit. We then have let it fizzle. But we were having the same issue that you bring up, Joe, is that we were needing to really push, and enrollment wasn't, we didn't have a strong attendance. And so it was a lot of work for getting a little out of it. I don't think once we are even more face to face that we will try to, I think we're just going to let it fizzle and just die.
Takes a lot of work. Kimberly, are you thinking about offering something like that, or you do it currently?
Kimberly may have signed off. She had a thank you everyone note there at the end. I think that's oh no, there we go. So if everybody can't see it, we have a meeting next week about launching it, working on design during COVID, and then going live. I first took the student activities of, having a BPA or a professionals club or whatever it is, as a sign of weakness. But I think if you have engaged students who are working, and I mean, what is a community college student, right? They're typically working, they have families, they have lives, they're managing their schedule in the first place. And then you're going to say, hey, let's come in and have fun together, too. They're pretty busy. So it's not something that, it used to bother me. It doesn't bother me anymore if we don't have anything rich going on, because they might just have enough.
Can I ask another question? I know, Chris, you were just going through this process of doing the e-business or digital marketing program that you're building out. Are there any other hot topic new courses that any of you are considering? Or anything where you're hearing from business that there's a void?
That is a great question, and I will honestly say not much. It doesn't mean that there aren't hot topics. It's just that I think our hands have been pretty full this semester. We haven't been working much on it. I would like to build out beyond digital marketing and create the components of digital, and do more with that and actually make a certification, but I'm not currently working on that. So Kimberly says data analytics.
I know with respect to data analytics that, I think what Kristi, you plan next is after we get this marketing class, has a few turns it's taught for a few semesters. We want to tighten up what goes on between. So we have a computer information system CIS 108 class that's a little bit, introduction to computers and how they're used in business, a little bit Excel and database, and now a little bit Teams, I think, is going to be added to it soon, and then that feeds into business, a business class, which is more about getting and presenting data, to put it in a sentence fragment. I think we want to see some tighter alignment between the digital marketing class and the business data and presenting class that we have, Business 222. I'm not sure that it's somebody's going to be a data analytics person as a result of taking those two classes, but I think just getting our students better prepared overall, where that's a kind of a blind spot for them now, or an underdeveloped area, is that I really jumbled that up, Kristi. Put that more concisely and better.
No, we're good. We're not going to revisit that. Christopher, what are you working on? What are you thinking about?
I'm actually thinking about retiring some things. So even like in our advertising course, now I'm getting a big push to do a social media course. I am not so sure. I understand the reason for the push because it's a hot topic. But I only have 62 credits to work with, right? And so I'm trying to be really careful about it. We are covering social media in so many courses, including our e-marketing course. So, but I am kind of thinking about actually retiring our advertising course, just general advertising. I'm not sure. I mean, I love it. It's my course. But I'm just, I want to be offering the right stuff. And so.
Boy, I totally get that. I love teaching advertising and promotion, but it's just not it anymore. Social media, I have mixed feelings because, frankly, students tend to know a lot about it. They're something Christina was running into with her social media discussion in digital marketing. Maybe she talked to you about this, is that she had students who were running a business and they were all the way up here. And she had students who had never logged into a social media site. So how do you teach with such a variance? You probably have some history in that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we know is our students are digital natives, but that doesn't mean they have the wisdom they need to be able to leverage it for business purposes. So it's a struggle. We have social media as a class on the books, and I taught it years ago, but we have not ran it since, because it's an orphan course. It doesn't belong under a program. And what Christine, or what you may hear in the community is, oh, I want to take a class on social media. But does that really convert to someone saying, I want to spend 45 hours over the next 15 weeks learning about this? And I think that's the breakdown. People say, I really need my employees to understand how to leverage social media for my company. But converting that into someone who's going to make the commitment over 15 weeks, we've really struggled with. And until we get it as part of a program, that probably will continue to be the case.
Makes sense. Kimberly, I do want to capture, you had mentioned that you're adding internships to the program, and I didn't want to lose that because I think that's a really interesting focus. So is this a new initiative for you? Are you adding internships to everything? What does that look like for you? You have to type really fast. Okay, finance at Kellogg, great. Wow. So that must be a partnership you have with them. That's a very interesting idea. Versus just, hey, a finance internship, go find it, that you actually have a partner.
So Kimberly, that's really interesting. We do offer personal finance, but do you have just a strict, does anyone offer a finance course, like a business finance course? I know normally that would probably be a higher level or graduate level course, but it doesn't sound like anyone does. Okay. Yeah, I do say, I think personal finance is the single most important course we offer anywhere on campus. Of course, I teach it, so it's a little biased. But
You know what? Don't you teach? Oh, you both teach personal finance.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That is one we don't offer, and we know we should. So this is probably what I'm going to take from this session and say, okay.
Yeah, and I will tell you, it is a growing course. We've never offered a lot of it, but demand is there. In fact, just today we were talking with my chair. We're adding sections.
Is it part of part of a program, or is it just a standalone course?
The biggest single demand is so we have AAS or ASA degrees that are not discipline specific, and I know everyone may have a different way of doing this, where they have a lot of electives, and many of our early college go into that, and our early college advisors are just pushing personal finance, and so they get to use it as an elective. I do have a little bit of a concern that it may not transfer in one-to-one in all programs at 4 years, because not all programs require it. They'll be able to transfer it in as an elective, no problem. But
right.
So yeah, it is. The demand is growing, especially from our early college program. Kimberly, could you tell me what content you use or what book you use for personal finance? What publisher?
Can you also share which one you use, Chris?
Yes, I use it's the McGraw-Hill Personal Finance. Kapor is the author, and I really like it. Katie, could you? I'm just intrigued by this. Katie, what college are you with? I'd like to see your personal finance or your corporate finance course.
West Shore Community College.
West Shore. Okay, neighbors. Okay, good.
Yeah. So we're doing some updates to the program, or to my program, the marketing and management program. And one of the things that I want to add is the personal finance course. I am really excited and I have a lot of passion for it. And so I'm really glad to hear all of your experiences with it. And so thank you for sharing that.
Okay, small but mighty group. I think we covered a lot of good topics today. I know I have a takeaway. I assume most of you do as well. It's about that time. And so are there any last, burning questions, things that you're like, hey, I just am wondering? Okay, so with that, I will take, Christopher, you put your contact information somewhere in the chat, right? Okay, great. So I'll grab that so that we can continue to talk to each other. And Kimberly, I just want to make sure yours is in there too. I'll make sure I grab those before this session ends and get those out to everyone. It's just nice to have that personal contact. Rick, great to hear from you. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work up there. Katie, thanks for your inspiration. And Kimberly, yep, we see your contact information, so that's great. Really appreciate the good work you're doing and the ideas. And Christopher, always good to see you. All right. Everyone take care and enjoy.